And you're listening to Ask the Mayor on KWBE, our weekly program with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan, fresh off a Memorial Day weekend. And did you have fun?
I did.
Take some time off.
I did. Good morning, Doug. Yeah,
Good morning.
it was just kind of nice. I mean, we didn't really do a whole lot. Had the opportunity to meet, the parents of the youngest daughter's boyfriend, which they've been going together for a while, and so we were going up to around a little town called Abbey.
Oh, okay.
Which
or Abbey, is it? Abbey or Abbey?
It's probably Abbey. It's up there by David City.
Oh, okay.
So that was interesting. Nice little drive, and it didn't really do a whole lot. But
I see. Well, sometimes that's the best thing.
I stayed off the golf course all 3 days.
Oh, wow. How'd you manage that?
Every once in a while it's nice to take a rest.
Yeah, really. Kind of ease the frustration if the game isn't quite going well.
Quite where I should be, that's right.
I know how that goes, I'll tell you what. One thing about the Memorial Day weekend, I know in the past years, oftentimes, it rains or it's a little bit cool. It just,
Right.
The weather in Nebraska can be 40 one day and 90 the next but it was a really nice, warm weekend. I didn't know if that translated into big attendance at the water park and places like that, or had you heard anything about that?
I haven't heard any numbers, but, the water park is open, and I'm sure that it had good attendance. I think as the beginning of the season, the water's probably a little chillier than what it will be in July and mid-June. But, it's up and running. And hopefully shortly the splash pad will be up and running. They had a little issue with a control monitor box, and so that's on order, but I think they'll be up and running shortly.
That kind of popped up at the last second, didn't it? Right before it was kind of getting ready to go, and it's one of those things.
It is. It's kind of like, something goes wrong right before your leave for vacation, and boom, you're delayed, and in this case, We'll be set in a couple of weeks, but it's just one of those unforeseen incidents that slowed things down a little bit.
So if families and their kids can hold out a little bit more, it'll be there sooner or later.
Yes,
it's going to take a few more days.
It's on the top of the radar, and hopefully it'll be up and running, like within the week or so.
Popular spot. When it went into effect, I kind of thought, oh yeah, there may be a few neighborhood kids there, but boy, I'll tell you what, you drove by there just about any time. And it was being used a lot. So
it is. I mean, and when we grew up, there was no such thing as a splash pad.
It was basic swimming pool or a lake.
A swimming pool, a creek, or a lake. But the splash pad just is a great opportunity for particularly the youngsters, just to have fun and enjoy the water. So it's really neat to be able to see some of those things that we can bring to the city that really just add to everybody's enjoyment of life.
At one time there was discussion about, do you build a second one? Is that still kind of out there on the drawing board or the list of possibilities, I guess?
It's on the list of possibilities. When, I know that it was on a couple of the councilmen's wish list of things to do. I don't think we've really gotten that fleshed out. We've got another number of other issues that we're dealing with right now. But I think if, down the road the numbers pan out, there might be an opportunity for a second one.
I think on the one at Sertilma Astro Park, you were still looking at the playground project there too, if I remember right. So
correct.
What's the status on that? That was a grant application?
That was a grant application, and I'm not sure where we're at on that project.
Okay, all right. But I think at one time there was talk of maybe splash pad in the south, west, something far enough away where you wouldn't be duplicating some service there. So, Board of Public Works meeting was held yesterday. One of the things that was briefly discussed was the bid regarding the 13th Street concrete construction project in South Beatrice, which a little bit on the unusual side because it's right along an area where you have residential areas where there's one way in, one way out. And so it presents a little bit more of a difficulty than maybe some things would.
It will. I mean, it really drives home the fact as you put together planned developments, if you can have a second way out, it really pays dividends. 13th Street project on Oak to Beaver there, that road is really breaking up. And so we had to do something. We were very fortunate. We had, I believe, 6 bids on the project. when you're looking at a project that the Teeman Construction got the bid at $584,000. So when you're looking about that sizable bid, we were pleased with the number of bidders, and we were really pleased with the bidding process because, in this day and age, we didn't know what we were going to get. So we're very happy with the bid. And the one thing that people probably just kind of need to know, though, is that the actual construction won't start until, I think, April of 2024. And so we're looking at about a year down the road. At first, you wonder, why aren't we getting it done quicker? But in this particular bid, and because everybody's so busy, we did allow the bidders to kind of choose when they could get the project going. And so the plus side to that is it's going to give us time and team and construction time to visit and talk about how do you do the road. I mean, do you do, the one lane that runs, one side and get it completely done, and then you allow people to switch and go one direction, then go the other direction. So it will be interesting to see how we do that, but also getting that time under our belts will allow us to hold maybe some public meetings so that all the residents in that area will have a good understanding about how they're going to get in and out of their neighborhood.
In addition to the switch from one lane to another, the interesting thing will be at the intersections where you go into a neighborhood. How do you work that out where you can still get in and out, or do you have to park somewhere else, or that type of thing?
Yeah, it's like other projects. There's going to be a little pain, but in the end of the day, this project just has to get done.
Do you think by allowing them, the contractors some leeway in when they actually start the project, do you think that impacted what prices you got on that project? Because they may have several projects lined up between now and then, but they might say, well, if I can obligate myself for 8-10 months down the road and I know something's out there, maybe I'll shoot a little bit lower price?
Yeah, I think that helped immensely. Yeah. I think it really did. What you have is if you have contractors that are absolutely busy, and to try to squeeze a project in, they're going to make sure it's well worth their time, and so that price is going to be higher. Here, they had the opportunity to kind of start building their projects for the following year, and it's not a small project at almost $600,000. So it's a good project, and we look for a good partnership.
We should mention Oak Street will remain open during this project because that's the one that goes around the other way. So anybody like you live out in that area, you'll be able to reach, and those areas farther to the east will be able to reach their properties. It's just that stretch along.
It's just that stretch from 13th to up, basically up to the country club.
Yeah. Or I should say Oak Street. Yeah. Did I say Oak Street? Yeah. I think I said something else.
No, you said Oak.
Oh, okay.
We're good.
I'm mixing them up between Beaver Street and Oak Street. Right. Beaver's the one that's a block north there.
And Beaver's going to be open, and Oak's going to be open. It's just that stretch of 13th. Yeah.
Well, you got plenty of time to determine how that's all going to work out, so that's good. One of the other things from the Board of Public Works meeting yesterday, mill and overlay work is finished on 11th Street. There was a change order on there, which I think covered some work. It was in Chautauqua Park,
yes,
I believe.
There was.
Talk about Park. That. What all was done there?
I think there's a road widening there. Sometimes campers pulling in and out. They're getting bigger and longer, and so that road was resurfaced and added some width to that road, and it worked out really well. I mean, the change order was about $108,000. But when you have a contractor here that can do it, and the money was budgeted to be done through the Parks Department, it worked out really well. I have not driven on it yet, but
I haven't either. I was going to go through there and see how that has changed because you have that little curve in there before you get to the Chautauqua area where you turn to go east there. But it was kind of narrow, so it'd be a nice change. The other thing about that campground is it is used practically year round. I mean, I know it's wintertime, it thins out a little bit, but you still have occasionally somebody in there that's either working on a project in the area or passing through or something.
Yeah, it's used a lot, which is good. That brings people to town.
Camping fees can pay for the paving.
Well, yeah, there you go.
I don't know how that exactly works.
And, it's also, we keep adding some things. the pickleball courts.
True.
You know, so now you've got more traffic out there, and so we just had the opportunity to do it. And you know, our department heads are really smart. They're always thinking about how they can get their projects done, but also how we get the projects done in a timely manner and at a good price.
Every once in a while, I get somebody ask me, you remember when the Park Road was along the north side of Chautauqua, along the river there? Before that was torn out.
Right.
They say, why don't you bring that back? I always kind of liked that drive. But that got flooded out so often. That was a nightmare to maintain.
It was a nightmare to maintain. Continually would flood and continually would flood. I mean, right now with the dryness, we probably would wish that we had more water in there than we do. But overall, it still is a pretty walk, nice trail.
Mm-hmm. And you had the improvement earlier in the year where you kind of straightened out the trail by the east side of Chautauqua Park there.
Correct.
Which is kind of nice. I went down through there the other day, and that is a nice improvement. So.
It is a nice improvement.
Yeah.
So, yep.
Speaking with Mayor Bob Morgan on Ask the Mayor today, we'll have more in a moment. Back on Ask the Mayor today with Mayor Bob Morgan. Just at the end of the break, of course, we had the open house recently, second open house meeting on the Court Street corridor project, and pretty good turnout.
Yeah, we had a nice turnout there. You know, I've had some people ask me what's the next step, and you know, both public meetings was to get input that Olson's could use as they develop what downtown revitalization plan would look like and what Court Street would look like from a pedestrian standpoint and increasing foot traffic in downtown. So, you know, some people have asked me what's the next step, and you know, Olson's will take all the information they gathered from both meetings, and then they will go through. It's really not the design phase, but I would say a concept. They will finalize and put the polish on that concept, and then they'll bring it back to the city council, probably it'll be July or August, and then we'll see what the one concept is. So.
As far as the possibility of moving the truck traffic farther south, looked like by the design you had the roundabout at 2nd and what at 8th, I think it was, or somewhere around there, which would remove one traffic signal, wouldn't it? In that area at 8th. You don't have one at 2nd Street, but that would be kind of nice.
You would. You would move the traffic nicely through the town. You're moving the highway over only one block, so you're still getting the traffic that comes through. It's not like we're moving it, you know, a mile on either side, and you know, it would just make the downtown a nice destination to be without having to worry about all the truck traffic that we have today.
Yeah. You know, whenever I'm driving out somewhere and I'm going through another town now because you guys are looking at this thing, I'm starting to look at town corridors more to see if there's anything there that would look good in Beatrice. Do you do that same thing as you drive? Just
there's a number that come. You know, there's a number of them that come to mind. I mean, Ashland has done a nice job redoing their downtown. Plattsman has done a nice job redoing their downtown. And then in other states, I've seen some things that have just been phenomenal. And so, you know, it is one of those things to make it a destination. It needs to be inviting.
Yeah, it seems like the two things I've noticed most often is the use of greenery, the sort of compressing. I mean, still allowing for parking, but kind of compressing enough the traffic that you can't just go roaring through an area. You have to watch out for other people. So
greenery, places, benches, those type of things. You know, as I said before, one of the things that we're going to try to safeguard ourselves, though, is we want to compress it, but not quite as much as we compress Fifth Street.
Yeah.
So
trying to wind between pickups in that area gets a little difficult at times.
It does. So you know, we know that's one of the things that were comments that we got that we're going to make sure that we put in our planning.
What former Chief Lang called that traffic calming, I think, or something like that.
Yes.
For some people, it's maybe just a bit too calm, or whatever.
Or stressful.
Yeah, traffic stressing, or something like that. So, one last thing from yesterday's Public Works Board meeting, a recommendation going to the City Council regarding setting of rates for a large power user that's going to come in, Moonraker Mining LLC. The benefit of the company, as it's been said, is it won't bring a lot of jobs, but it will use a bunch of power.
It is. It is tied into the cryptocurrency, and really what it is a building that will house a lot of computers. And so what it means for the city of Beatrice is we're going to use a lot of electricity. So we're setting that rate for them. And when we set the rate there, we're looking even in the future because we know there's more companies out there that do this with Bitcoin and cryptocurrency and who knows what's next. What we're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we have our rates fair, but yet we make some good money for the electric department. And that continues to help all of us in town as we look at the fact that we haven't had to raise our electric rates since 2015. You know, the more electric that a company will use will help all of the users because that's money that comes into the electric part of the BPW. The ordinance itself is written though, so if somebody else comes in, we still will apply the same basic principles of how we came up with that rate.
Compared to, and I don't even know if there's an answer to this right offhand, but compared to another, say, industrial user who it's a big power user in the town right now, this would be 4 times, 5 times. Have you been told anything about that?
I haven't. I mean, because they keep talking in, I think they're going to use 2 kilowatts. I mean, they do it in measurement and
unless you're an electric superintendent, that might be a little.
Yeah, that and from the power perspective, Tobias, the city administrator, has a really good handle on what that is. And one of the questions I think that was asked at the Board of Public Works is, will that impact anybody's use of electricity in town? And no, it won't. It is actually surplus electricity that we have that we currently sell on the open market. And the open market, there's a few days that it's really good, there's other days that it's not. And so this really brings in a good use for surplus energy.
Kind of sounded like any of the adjustments or upgrades you had to make too were not that extensive in terms of getting ready for this company coming in.
I mean, that particular lot was really set very well for the technology that's going in there. And of course, the company's paying for a lot of those upgrades. So it's really, we were looking forward to a good partnership, and we hope that they continue to add more and more of the buildings there to the point where they meet a technician or two. I mean, that's kind of what we hope for. And the other thing that I didn't quite realize until they talked at the Board of Public Works, we also have a safeguard in there. I think, what was it? We could shut them off up to 100 hours in a year.
Yeah, and I think you had to provide them like, what, a 24 or 48-hour notice?
A 1 hour notice.
1 hour notice, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And if you think about that, well, why would you do that? But if you think about the vortex, the winter vortex of what, 2021?
Yeah, or 2020 or 2021, one of those.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about that, when it got to be 21 below zero, it was a big energy crunch. So we could have, taken some of the energy away from them for that one day.
I see.
And so same way if, I think, what was December of this year, or a couple of really, really cold days, if we saw a crunch on our electric grid, we could take some power away from them for a couple hours. So really, we've built in the safeguards for the community.
We'll be back to wrap up Ask the Mayor with Mayor Bob Morgan in just a moment on KWBE. We're back on Ask the Mayor today with Beatrice Mayor Bob Morgan as we finish up with a few things. I didn't even have to write your last name down today. I was getting it wrong. Actually, I did write it down, but I've been looking at it every once in a while, ever since 2 weeks ago when I made that mistake about...
Hey, don't feel bad.
Yeah,
we're all been there.
It's getting a little forgetful these days, I'll tell you what. Water main work on 4th Street. Still some activity there before they do move on to Court between, I think it's 10th and 4th Street. Some of that will be slightly on hold to get through Homestead Days and everything. But
right.
What's on the 4th Street thing? What's left to do there?
Well, we have to cut out a lot of the old mains, get rid of those. I think right by the city administrative offices, you've got 2 big holes where they're cutting down and getting deeper to cut off the mains that are there. it's like a lot of projects that if you're going to remodel a 100-year-old home, you have everything planned out, you know what you're doing, and then boom, you happen to uncover some slats and find out there's a bigger problem, or you didn't know that was there. And so we're finding some taps that we weren't aware of and they weren't aware of. So sometimes you're going to see some saw cuts and some holes pop up.
Most of the connections, though, to residences, the school, been completed?
I think they've been completed. I think everything's working pretty well. Company's been great to work with. It's just that, you know, it's one of those projects that you're going to have things crop up, little unexpected presence here and there.
You had to close down this week between High Street and Grant on 4th. I noticed quite a bit of activity around 4th and Grant there.
Right.
But that may be another part of the project there.
Right. I think it's two projects. You're still got the water main project, and I think they're working on the generators there to make sure that we continue to have a generator backup for the water system.
That would be with the south pump
side
station
of that pump
there.
station.
That's right.
Yeah.
So I noticed a few people driving up east on Grant Street and having to turn around. So make sure you don't do that until the end of the week. Just keep coming through town.
That and and like I said at 4th and Ella there, it's pretty narrow right now because they're working on both sides of the street as they take out old taps.
The old thing is, if you see traffic cones or barricades, just exercise some caution.
That's right.
Especially with workers around.
Exactly.
And, you need to kind of slow down through there. So, Clean City Week report, heard yesterday at the Board of Public Works, seemed like kind of a, on par with some other years, except for maybe the tonnage, a lot heavier items.
Right. We had more heavy items, and I think we actually had a few appliances that a lot of times when there are appliances, particularly the price of metal is up, we see those disappear before we pick them up. And I think we had a couple of those. But I think it was a year where we had a lot of heavier furniture that was time to go. And so, that's the great thing about, I don't know how many other cities ever have a Clean City Week where we clean everything up, but it sure is nice to have that done. I know I had a couple of things that had to go, an old thing, an old shelf in the, or whatever you want to call it, cabinet in the garage. It was shot. I also had some rings there that were concrete, but those disappeared before. That didn't add to the tonnage there because those disappeared sometime during the night.
Somebody pulled up with the pickup and the trailer, and off she goes.
And you know what? If they can use them, that's great.
A few years back, you had kind of a brief problem there with people putting out stuff that they weren't supposed to, in terms of things that could go out with regular garbage service. But it seemed like with the 1,100 some locations this year, didn't really seem like you had that many places where you had to leave items. I mean, relative to the whole number of locations, it seemed to be pretty small.
It was pretty small. I mean, percentage-wise, it was very, very small. I think we still had some. I think kind of tying it in with the garbage pickup day works out really, really well. I think that's a smart move. And I think, the big thing to remember is, we've got a defined list of what we take and what we don't take. And we had a few that put out a lot of stuff that we weren't able to take, and I know that the city worked with them.
Yeah. Mattress drop-off was down a little bit, but that kind of ebbs and flows back and forth, doesn't it?
But it still amazes me how many.
Yeah.
What do they say? Was it nine?
Nine. It was a 30 cubic yard.
Yeah, roll-offs,
which is pretty good size.
Yeah, of mattresses, and the mattresses drop-off, which was out where the compost site is, out by the city dump, worked out really well. I got thinking about that. No matter where you put it, you got to drive to it.
Yeah.
And so this is convenient as any place. So, yeah.
A couple other things to touch on. I have just a few minutes left. Departments working on their budgets, kind of the early part of before things come to you as a council. Yes.
I know that department heads have gotten through their capital requests. Capital requests can be equipment or construction projects that they want to plan out in the next 2 years, because our budget is a 2-year budget, and it will need to be approved in basically September as we finish up our 2-year budget we're on right now. So they're working really hard. I think once they've got those turned in, and then you kind of look and see what can get done and what can't get done. So they're in pretty good shape.
So a second year of your term, you don't have to go through that budget process again. You get 2 years of a break there.
Well, yeah, I do. That's a good thing.
Yeah. Aside from adjustments that have to be made.
It does need to be made, and I guess that's one of the fortunate things of having the position I had at the community college. Budgeting is one of the things that we did there on a yearly basis, but some of the processes are still the same as you go through that.
Okay. Kind of unusual. I thought it was going to end a week from tomorrow, but the legislative session is due to end today. I notice Governor Pillen's giving his remarks, Speaker John Arch giving his remarks as they close out things. But I was wondering did anything stand out in terms of what was passed and how it might affect cities? I know a lot of time was spent on very controversial sort of culture type issues, but did you see anything that stood out as to its effect on municipalities?
No, not really. I mean, the one thing you had kind of mentioned that there was something in one bill that we might have to take a look at on food trucks.
Myron Doran's E15 access bill, there was a provision, I think Tony Vargas, it was a bill he had to sort of standardize or come up with some type of reasonable thing on food trucks, and I don't know how that affects what you did as a council.
Right.
That might be one thing. So
we may have to take a look at that. I don't, again, I'm sure Tobias has probably taken a look at it and see where we're at with that. But overall, I think there was just some big issues that were not necessarily city related.
Yeah. A lot of education funding issues, especially K through 12, but also the community colleges, plus you had the continuation of tax cuts and things like that. And so there was a lot of money type issues that will impact the state.
There were money type issues and social issues that kind of took up most of the legislative time.
Yeah. Coming up Monday night, you have a city council meeting, public hearing regarding your property acquisition?
We do. We have an option to purchase land right next to our industrial park. I think it's 80 acres. And quite honestly, one of the important things of a city is to be able to bring in industry. We don't have an industry on the line for that property, but I think it's a prudent thing to do is to buy that property so we have the ability to expand our industrial park because it's getting fuller.
This was in the north part of the park, kind of west of Precise and then north of there.
Right.
As I understand
Yep.
that area. Okay. Yep. Well, we'll be seeing you on Monday night then.
Absolutely.
Bob. All right.
All right.